Hey guys, and let's talk about DMing for Dungeons and Dragons. And I want to talk about things that can really ruin and railroad your game, or maybe you've seen it happen and just, someone needs to hear the discussion and needs to hear it. Now, a little background about me and my DMing. I've DM'd since I was about 11 years old. I think I first DM'd, so over 20 years, well over 20 years at this point. I guess 25 years. Of course, I've taken some years off, but some of that is nice downtime to think about things and how things go. Ran a lot of campaigns, and I've made a lot of these mistakes, so I've seen the aftermath and the effect it causes, and here we go. I've got 5 of these. I think they're really important for DMs to hear. So here we go. 5 mistakes DMs make that ruin games. Alright, number 1. The number 1 thing that kind of ruins the game is they just make it boring by not giving the players a variety of challenges. And what happens in this case is either they keep doing the same thing over and over, like it's just another battle, it's just yet another battle, and it becomes a hack and slash. And as you might know, the combat in D&D isn't the greatest. It's very, very slow, unfortunately. So what you need is a variety of challenges. And these can be kind of tough to come up with off the top of your head sometimes, so it's good to have like a list and just have some wacky stuff in there that'll get some fun and get some nuances out of your characters that are playing the game, so they can kind of explore their character a bit. Like you can have stuff like just really random things, like take events from the world and take events from a list and just pick them out. Like you can maybe, while they're shopping and bored, maybe a thief or someone steals something and they catch it, but maybe the shop owner doesn't notice. So now they have to make a moral decision of what they do about this thief, and that'll reveal something about their character. Or maybe they try to talk to the thief and see if they're an organization, part of some organization or something like that. So just little random events that might happen in the everyday world. I think it's really important for those to be thrown in so that characters can kind of reveal their personality and what they would do in those situations. And that variety makes a big difference. If it's not there, the campaign often gets really boring. But you don't want to do too many of those. You don't want to railroad your main story. I think these should be thrown in sort of the downtime of the main story to kind of just fill out the characters a little bit, but also make sure they're limited. You don't want a whole session railroaded by a random event. So that brings me to number 2, and that is basically using the combat rules as they are. Now, this is kind of this is obviously my opinion, but I think the combat in D&D 5th edition is a bit lame in the way that it's really slow. If you go by the combat as it is, it's just so slow. And this can be okay for your players. You should let your players, have their full turn. But when it comes to the NPCs, I think as a DM, you should hack some of it. Like if you go through every little goblin and every little character that is part of the enemy team, because there could be a lot, 10, 20 sometimes, especially if there's a bunch of small ones. If you go through every little thing, combat gets really slow. So if you have a big group, you maybe have them roll collectively or roll all the dice at once and see how many hits, and just give a synopsis of what happens at times, but not to the extent where it makes it unbelievable. But it's just no fun for the players to hear a long, drawn-out sequence that doesn't amount to much other than, oh, this guy misses, oh, this guy hits, this guy moves over here, says some random thing, and then meanwhile the players are waiting 10, 20 minutes. I've waited 30 minutes in between my turns before in combat, and that's ridiculous, because there's literally nothing to do except stare at the wall when you're just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting for your turn. It's really not fun, and I think it ruins games. It's probably the biggest ruiner for me. I can barely enjoy D&D anymore, and it's mostly because just the amount of time it takes to get back around to you It really varies with player or group sizes. I kind of like smaller groups because you don't have so much downtime and it doesn't get so boring like in mid-session. Alright, that brings me to the third point, the third thing that ruins games, and that is having strong NPCs, non-player characters, do everything. And this is boring because it's basically the DM, writing a book and telling a story and writing a novel while everyone else is, they're just kind of there, I don't know, for what, moral support? Your players just feel like they don't have a purpose if none of their actions matter. So you gotta make their actions matter. And to do that, you need to lay off the NPCs that are strong. Now, it's okay to have strong NPCs around in some way or another, maybe as a failsafe or back at their base or something, who knows. But in general, it's always safe to not have strong NPCs on the player's side. Maybe one or two around their level or a little weaker than them to have some information or something for a quest, that's all fine. But the NPCs should never be so strong that like the players could just not be there and they would still win the encounter. And I've seen this happen all too many times, and it makes me facepalm every time I see it. Someone will just be like, oh, this would be cool, let me just bring in this NPC from a campaign or a book like Drizzt and have them run with the players. That would be fun, wouldn't it? And what ends up happening is the players just kind of get to stare as the DM makes NPC do everything. And they take their turn, they hit for like 2 damage, and then Drizzt takes his turn and he kills 4 things, and you're like, I don't even need to be here. Can I just stop playing and go do something else? Because this is if you want to write about Drizzt, why don't you just write a novel? So it's just I've seen it happen so many times, and I've personally seen it ruin campaigns. Maybe I've done this one, I probably have, but I try. This is something I definitely avoid. I sometimes have like a strong NPC do. If it is a strong NPC, the only reason they're strong is because they're not supposed to die yet. But I'll still let them die if the circumstances make it happen. But generally it's because they report to a quest and they need to maybe teleport the player somewhere or something, and they're the only one who can. So clearly you don't want that person to die right away. But the thing is, when they do they're part of the quest, part of the advance in the quest, you just have that NPC have something else to do. Maybe they got important meetings. They surely don't want to be running around with lowly adventurers, so to speak. Who knows? Maybe you're not lowly adventurers, but in general, it makes the game really boring for the players if all their actions just feel pointless and it's going to be done anyway, Alright, and the next one is number 4, giving too powerful of items to your players. Now, this is sort of similar as the NPC thing, but basically what can end up happening is if, you like your players, you want to make them happy, and they finish some quest or something, you just think, okay, I want them to keep playing, so I'll give them powerful toys and cool toys to play with. But what ends up happening is the game becomes boring because it becomes too easy. Like, you can just one-shot everything with that +5 Vorpal Greatsword, so I don't know, why are you level 3 and have a +5 Vorpal Greatsword? Or maybe, something else just really, really strong. There's some, I think, staff that lets you basically control large crowds at a pretty successful rate, and I've been guilty of giving that out. It was actually rolled on a chart and I just gave it as it was, and my players didn't even want to use it. It was so powerful because they were like, oh, I could just win every encounter by controlling this city and making all their members do something. And it's like, yeah, the way the thing is worded, it pretty much can do that. It's really, and there's a lot of examples of this, of really, really powerful items just doing stuff that they basically change the entire tone of the game. They can railroad the game. They can take all the focus off all the players. Only the player with a really powerful item now matters. No one else seems useful anymore. You have to ramp up the challenge rating way above what it should be because your players are miles and miles ahead of what they should be due to their just really strong items. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't give some items, but you should just temper it, little thing here and there, or have them really work for it. Make sure it's earned. Don't give them the most top secret best item in the world at a low level, especially when they haven't particularly done anything for it. Like, why is that strong of a thing going to be on a low level quest? It really just makes the players feel like they're in God mode. And if you've ever played a game and gone into God mode, the main thing it does is it makes the game really fun for like 2 minutes, and then you realize, oh, there's not even a challenge here anymore. Okay, I'm done. So if you have done this, one thing you can do is just suddenly reveal that it's cursed or something, or if you can come up with some clever way to take it away without totally ruin it. But it just kind of goes back to the old theory of a good challenge is fun. You know, difficult games are fun. So when things are just too easy, it just sort of ruins it. And last but not least, DMs that will never kill their players. No matter what you do, you survive. You jump off a 300-foot cliff, I don't know, you survived. Divine Grace came in yet again and saved you. You jump into a lake of hungry sharks that are ready for feed, and somehow you escape, even though you had on full plate. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. The DM's just bringing all this magical divine intervention to make sure that their players never die because they don't want to disappoint them. And that ruins the game, because once again, it's just too easy. There's no consequences. There are no consequences for their actions. So you cannot be afraid to kill your players. And don't do it lightly. Don't kill them just to kill them. Make it a consequence of their action, or sometimes it's just the dice. I've got a lot of stories about this. I'm somewhat notorious for letting people die if they do stupid things. Or, you know, what I do is I tend to just try to keep it logical and play it out as it was, with no specific regard for them being a player, unless something special happens, of course. But in general, it's like, what would happen if that was an NPC? You know, you just make the actions play out as they would, kind of no matter what they do, and let them try to get out of their own trouble, let them get creative. And, you know, all of these, well, a lot of these, especially the last one about not being afraid to kill your player, they really invite creativity, because you have to come up with unique ways of handling things, and in general that is rewarded, and you should reward that. So this is only 5 things about mistakes that ruin games. Let me know what mistakes you've seen that have totally ruined your game, or how these have happened, and maybe I'll do another video about things that make games awesome. Oh, and if you got this far, please do like, comment, subscribe, and it would really, really mean a lot to me if you could do some of those things. It really helps the channel a lot. Alright, thanks for watching. Happy DMing or playing. Vile Dragon out.